Okay. Okay, so we're streaming live into the Successful Bookkeeper Australia group. So if you are watching the group, I'm just going to admit our waiting room. Watching inside of the group, feel free to post any comments in the stream as you're watching, ask any questions, and or join us. If Lou will put up the Zoom link for people to join us directly into the group, into the thread, so you can join us and be part of the conversation as well. So today I am joined with Stephen Musico. Is that the right?
That's correct. Yeah, good job.
All right, from Happy HR, and where the title today we're going to be talking about is when to hire staff, who to hire, how to hire ma, and just anything around, you know, recruiting and managing staff. If any questions pop up, so we're going to be led by questions that come up, and we're just going to have conversations around how people are employing at the moment. And so hopefully be able to provide you some value and some answers as we go along. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much for having me, Katrina. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. So we've got a few people on the call today. So I guess let's get started around when to hire. So I know for myself, it was, you always seem to hire too late. So it's something that, you know, you do need to plan for. So planning is really important in all of this, and making sure that you do have enough lead time to hire as well.
Yeah.
And that you do it at a time where it is going to make sense for your business. So I never hired in June, July, because obviously it's all too busy. So I always planned a new hire in May to give them enough time to get integrated into your business and learn your systems, and so that they were on the ground running for the late June, July, August type of period. Yeah, so what do you, have you got some feedback around when to hire? What are you finding in the industry for yourself?
Is that for us or for the team?
Yeah, well, for your clients, I guess. I mean, you've got
Our clients, sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
we certainly do. So from a bookkeeping perspective, I think it just sort of, I guess, concurring your thoughts that obviously you want to pick the time frame, obviously coming into the start of, or the end of the year, and a diabolical year it's been, but coming into the end of the year is now a really good time to start planning, because as you sort of move into the next year, you want to start putting the wheels in motion, planning what that looks like this side of Christmas. So that way, when you do come back after a nice, well-deserved break in 2021, you're ready to go. You've got everything planned and set out, and then you can just execute on that strategy. And to be honest, it's something that we're doing as well. We're hiring internally, but it is going to be, we've done the planning stage, and anybody that we do recruit is going to be starting as of January, because it just doesn't make sense to get somebody started prior to Christmas, and then all of that momentum and knowledge tends to sort of disappear with a few summer beverages and a bit of relaxed time over the Christmas period. So getting them started and trained up and ready to go in that quieter time of January is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, and you mentioned like many months before you actually hire, and this is important, I guess, for especially somebody hiring for the first time, is the preparation of the systems and the foundations, and you know, what are you going to pass over to them, and having a method of you know, checking all of those things, and so you know, the lead time can be quite long, and it's often we are too busy and overwhelmed, and we're working 50-hour weeks or 60-hour weeks or more, and we go, we do need to hire somebody, and it's like it's almost too late.
Yeah, and I think a great exercise that people can do just whilst they're sort of going through that prep process, and obviously we'll go into a bit more detail on benchmarking and so forth next week, business benchmarking around a planning strategy for hiring a new staff member, but a really good practical tool that everybody can use, especially for that first hire, is just every time you do an exercise that either frustrates you or It's not a competency that you're 110% good at, and your focus is on other things and you're really good and really enjoy other things. Jot them down on a piece of paper, because what will happen over time is that you will start to form a position description of a person that you would like to employ. And these are the roles and responsibilities that you would like to pass on to them, because what it is they're typically the non-income producing type of roles, because it's the administrative work that everybody doesn't like to do. All of the dealing with clients and the compliance side is obviously really important, is what earns the dollars. So you sort of got to take a step back and say, well, what don't I enjoy doing, especially for that first hire, not necessarily the ones after that, but that first hire, what don't I enjoy doing? What do I enjoy doing? And jotting that down on a piece of paper to sort of start working out what that position will look like for you. So that's a really, really simple tool people can start to do now.
Yeah, it was an exercise that I actually did with my mentor. He gave me the 4 quadrants of what was important for me to do. And highlight whatever activity I was doing and place it into one of the quadrants, whereas high value, low value, high energy, low energy type of quadrant, and which identified where I needed to spend my time, which helped me identify the stuff that I needed as well.
Yeah, and that's from a competency point of view, which is fantastic, because obviously you want that support. That's why you're hiring somebody. But the other side of the equation, which I think is a pitfall a lot of people fall in, is not taking into consideration the personality profile or the type of person that they would like to employ. And again, we'll go into more depth on this in our upcoming webinars that we're excited to present. But you do really want to understand, well, what does this person look like? Are some of those skills and tasks that I don't like doing, or I prefer somebody else to be doing and spending my time on other things, can they be taught? Can they be trained? And if so, it goes back to that personality profile, and who are you looking for specifically? And is it somebody with attention to detail? Is it somebody that I always use the sales example, because it's very simple for everybody to understand, that if you're looking for somebody to go out there and cold call and really hunt down business, you're going to look for a hunter mentality. Whereas if you're looking for somebody that's going to manage relationships with people, they're not as competent and as skilled in the hunter side. It's more of a relationship management type of individual. Then there's another layer of complexity to that as to how well they gel with you, especially a first employee, given that it's quite a small unit. You're going to be working together quite often, and in a very intimate environment. You want to make sure that you and that person gels. So there's the competency side, and then there's the personality side that you got to take into consideration.
Yeah. And as you said, we're starting a series of webinars next week. So we've got 2 this year, and we're doing 2 or 3 next year as well, depending on what our flow is. So next week is going to be talking about the business benchmarks, what type of employee we want, and what to do to prepare for it. And then around the business culture and the personnel culture. I think that might be the week after that we're planning, the personnel.
I think so, yeah.
But the business culture is so important, and it's something that, we don't even consider thinking about. So yeah, that'll be an interesting conversation that we have next week. So be sure to look out for that. The registration, you would have got an email for it, but if you're wanting, I'll get Lou to actually pop the registration on this link as well, so you've got that in there as well. So I'd be curious to know from the people that are attending today of, have you got staff, and how many staff that you do have, and if you are wanting, when is your next hire? So let's get some, we can assist those that are wanting to hire, or, looking at, their current staff even. Amar, did you want to come off mute?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. And thanks, Stephen, for coming in to host today. Trudy will co-host with me, so I appreciate that. So I have 3 full-time staff at the moment, 4 if you want to include my wife for tax reasons. 3 who help me pay the bills. And
Plenty of
actually my
papers too.
goal for November is to hire my fourth. So the timing couldn't be better. So that was my goal for the month. But we're at the 19th, and I've only done a few interviews, and I've got a lot to go. So I've got to really get cracking on it over the next 11 days. Otherwise, I'm going to disappoint myself and not hit my goal, which I hate doing. So I'm going to try to focus on that in the last 10 days of the month. I'm still keen to try to hire someone by the end of the month.
Okay, so what have you done to engage, to get people into the process?
Yes, I put a job ad. I've been doing some interviews over Zoom, which has been working quite well. But I've probably only done it over a few days this month. So I've got to follow up. I've got to do more interviews. So I still haven't gotten to the second interview stage. I'm still doing first interviews. So I want to go through and complete my first interviews. But it comes back to finding the time, right? So I need to invest the time. The time is there. I need to invest the time and put that as the priority over the next 10 days. Get those first interviews done, narrow it down to hoping to about 6 candidates for a second interview, no more than that, and then get them onto the PBS skills test, and then narrow it down to 2 and make a decision from there.
Yeah. So is this an Australian or an onshore staff member?
Either or. I'm looking at both. Tax. I'm looking for a tax accountant on either onshore or offshore.
Right. Okay. Yep. Have you ever thought of
doing it? Most accountants are really busy thanks to the joys of JobKeeper and cash flow boost and everything. So it seems like they're getting grabbed pretty quickly. So there's just not as many candidates as previously. So when I've recruited last year in October last year, I had so many more candidates come through the door, and really good candidates as well. This year it's a completely different story. It's hard to find staff because they've all been grabbed and really busy where they are. I'll committed, so I'll keep pushing ahead, and I'm really keen to get someone this month.
Yeah, and it's great that you've got that second round of interviews, that you're doing that protection and skills testing them.
Yeah.
And have you considered your business culture and who you were looking for? Have you considered that type of person as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the personality and characteristics become a big part of it, especially because the services we provide, where we meet with our clients every single month, that relationship aspect is quite critical.
Yeah. And how do you identify that personal culture? So you've identified what you want, your business culture and the person that you want. How are you going to do that for the actual person?
So I've got a template of questions that I go through. So when I interview them, a lot of the questions are quite behavioral. So just to identify how they think, how they work, their moral compass as well, the things they value, what they look for in an employer, what they look for in teams, how they like to work. So I try to focus on that just to make sure that, because all my staff are phenomenal, better than all of your staff. No, I'm joking. All of my staff are quite amazing. So it's really important for me that they all get on and enjoy coming to work. So I don't want to get someone who can come in and be a bit of a cultural clash, and can create a bit of toxicity in the firm as well. So having that synergy from within the team is quite important for me as well.
Yeah. One of the third steps that I did when I was interviewing was actually take them over the road, locally to a coffee shop when you had them in the office. I'd take them over the road for a coffee and just sit down, because you can't ask them personal questions in your interview. But it was a good way of finding out about their family and their hobbies and their culture, what their beliefs are. And I remember taking one lady across the road, and she didn't like coffee. I was like, how can I have somebody in my office that doesn't want to have a coffee break? You need that social. I know I just work all the way through. I'm going to have somebody that has a coffee and a chat and a social. So it did turn out that she there was other things that came out in that interview or that chat that sort of no, she's not really aligned to my casual connection. So but yeah, that's one of the ways that I got around to asking personal questions, is finding out, having that personal coffee chat.
Amar, quick question. Sorry, Katrina. Amar, do you get your staff input into the personality type as well?
Yeah, so good you mentioned that, because this is the first time I've done that. So when I saw that I wasn't getting the right level of engagement from candidates, I actually got my staff involved, and so we had a workshop, in our workshop, where we went through the job ad and started ditching it completely. And so they actually changed it completely. They said, "Oh no, we don't care about that. How about saying this, and you should mention that, and this is the great thing about working at Latif Accounting, and you should mention this, and this is something." And so they started to then spell out what's attractive in working with my firm. And it was completely different to what I had. And a lot more to the point. I got a lot better engagement on that job ad when they did that. So it seems like they know my business better than I do, which is a bit scary. But it worked. So this is the first time I've done that. It was really effective. But I haven't gotten them involved in the interview process yet. But I should. But I haven't, not yet.
Yeah, it's small teams. I mean, again, I can reference what we do internally. That's something that we organise, especially that sort of second round interview, that coffee chat that Katrina was mentioning. We sort of get the team to that they're going to be working directly with, and have that coffee and have that conversation, just to see what the dynamic is like, see what the flow is like. And it's always a little bit misrepresented to a certain degree, because they're a little bit shy and timid, and it seems very, it's not intimidating, but it's everybody just sitting around having a chat, and it's really nice to pick up on that flow and see if everybody does connect and does flow in the right way. And it's not a what do you do, how do you go about this type of scenario. It is just general chit chat, and trying to have a laugh and a bit of banter, just to make sure that person is able to sort of fit in that way, because it is critically important. And it sort of goes to, from a psychological perspective, one of the drives in terms of employee motivation, which is classified as a drive to bond. And the drive to bond is exactly that. It's that connection with colleagues. It's connection with yourself as a manager. And the more heightened that connection is amongst the team, the more likely they are to stay, but also be motivated on a day-to-day basis. So it really does form one of those critical elements. And if you get that right at the start, that first 3-month period is so much simpler than if there is a little bit of disconnection.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. I should involve them more in that interview process as well.
Yeah. That's I've never actually done that, to get the staff involved in that. So, and you can see if they're sitting around casually that they find common ground as well. So, it does make the induction, the orientation, a lot easier, because they've already got something to chat about in the lunchroom. And
the reality is, when that successful applicant starts, they'll be mostly working with my staff, to be honest, and not me. So it's probably more important they get on as well, because they're most likely going to be reporting into the supervisor in my team rather than directly to me.
Yeah. And how that individual perceives the business as well, in terms of the culture and everything else, is going to be largely influenced by the staff. So whatever processes you put into place, it's fantastic, and you can do whatever you like. But a large part of it, the reality is that, especially if they've got a direct report that sits underneath yourself, then the way that they perceive the culture of the business is typically through that person. Or through the rest of the team. So it is important. And look, you don't do it for every candidate. You sort of pick your one or two that you're sort of not sure which way you want to go, and then that may just point you in the right direction. So certainly not getting coffees every day and spending hours upon hours outside of the office, but when you get to that sort of really pointy end of the conversation, it does aid significantly.
Fantastic.
I've never actually used like a DISC or a personality test. Would you recommend that, Steve, in assessing the type of person, like you mentioned before about a hunter
Yep.
type of personality. We certainly want attention to detail, but if you've got a supervisor, you want a leader quality, and if you've got the worker under the supervisor, you want somebody that's going to accept what the leader's saying. So have that, not have a strong personality under there to disregard what the leader's saying. So will a DISC type of test pick those things up, and is it important?
Yeah, every one of those tests is different. I mean, I've personally done one, and that wasn't through our business. I have done some through other interviews, and look, they're helpful to a certain point because it is reliant on the individual's answer to the question, and sometimes depending on how they're feeling that day, it may be a bit of a different answer depending on the circumstances of the question. So I wouldn't go to the point of trusting it 100%, but it certainly will give you an indication as to the personality type. But realistically, that can come from the interview as well, and previous experience and all that sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, short answer, yes, I think they are important to do, but I wouldn't rely on them completely, because I know the ones that I've done in the past, I've gotten different results. And very truthful in the answers that I gave, but just different results each time. So yeah, it's not a foregone conclusion is what I'm saying there.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Blair, I'd be interested to hear from you. I'm not quite sure if you've got staff, wanting to put staff on?
Yeah, so currently at the moment I have 2 team members, one 4 days a week and one 2 days a week. We've got an offshore person starting Monday full-time. It will be our first full-time offshore person coming on. We previously had someone part-time, sorry, and they left. They didn't quite work out. And we did try and replace them, and then I was like, oh no, I've got time to do it myself, which was wrong. So then we went back to trying to find someone recently, and then I've had issues this week with my girl 2 days a week. And the feedback that I've got from, I guess, my trusted advisors is to get rid of her. I'm not really wanting to do that one because it's so close to Christmas. I feel, a bit of responsibility for that person. And also the clients that she looks after, some of them she has really good relationships with. And I feel that if I got rid of her and replaced her with an offshore person, I would lose those clients. So I'm taking half the clients off her. We're having a meeting today to set the expectation of what we expect from her moving forward. I am kind of hoping she turns around and says, well, I can't live up to that, so I'm resigning, but I don't see that happening. So that was why we ended up putting this other person on full-time instead of part-time, and we're going to take half her work off her and give to this other person plus all the work that I'm doing. So probably don't have enough work for this person full-time at the moment, but we'd be pretty close. And if I can give her my work in the new year, I can just focus on growing, and I at least know I've got someone trained, ready to take that work on as it comes in.
Yeah, exactly. And having that conversation with the outgoing staff member, if you like, are they a permanent, part-time?
Casual.
Oh, casual. Okay. So then you're okay to reduce the workload and discuss, because I imagine the hours are going to be reduced as well.
Yeah. So part of the problem I'm having with her is she keeps telling us she's really busy and needs to work extra days. And when I look at her timesheet, she's only doing 4 hours a day. And, me and the other team member are under the pump, unable to get the work done. We've got the least amount of BAS lodged this quarter than we've ever had. And she just keeps saying, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. And I'm like, well, I need a team player, someone that, when they're busy, like for 4 hours, for the rest of the 3, turns around and says, what can I do to help? Because we've got the work for her to do. And she has expressed that she wants more hours, but she's not showing that to me.
You've done performance reviews with her in the past?
Not formal performance reviews, but we have talked about some issues and been working to try and help her with that, because she has 5 years experience, but for someone with that level of experience, she doesn't show that in her work. So if I give her new work, it's a major task to get her going on that. And while she's doing that type of work for 10 other clients, it's still an ordeal for her. And I feel, you know, if you've got 5 years experience, I should be able to give you anything within your skill set and you do it. So we've been working on trying to get her more confident in her ability, because the clients that she's got, she does a great job on, but I just can't give her anything new. So we've been really working on that, trying to make her a bit more self-sufficient, because when it gets too hard, she just goes, oh, too hard, don't know, can't do.
Is there anything in the interview process or the onboarding process that would have given you a bit of a red flag about that? Is there something that you didn't ask or did ask?
Well, I inherited these 2 employees with the purchase of another practice.
Okay.
And the feedback that I'm getting is this girl has always had these problems. She's never improved over time, and they don't actually know why the previous owner kept her.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So I wanted to work with her because the clients from that practice love her. So she's got that, and I needed someone with the rapport to make sure my investments don't walk out the door.
Couple of questions, if I could, Blair. When you purchased the business and took over, did you provide staff with KPIs?
We did, yes.
Yep. Okay.
And most of the KPIs are being met, but now I'm sort of going, maybe the KPIs that I gave aren't the right ones that we need to be looking at.
What did you center the KPIs around? What sort of metrics and data?
So we looked at productivity, which she is meeting her productivity targets, but I think we should have been looking at labour targets as opposed to productivity. And we did employee capacity, which if she works 3 days, she meets her employee capacity, but if she works 2 days, she doesn't. But she really should, like, she has the capacity to do it over 2 days. She's just not putting in the hours.
So from the sounds of things, the KPIs are all quantitative, so more around quantitative elements. Was there any qualitative or values-based KPIs that you sort of mentioned before that you want an employee that will say, I've done my 4 hours, how can I help? Did you have any sort of values-based KPIs around teamwork that you could refer back to and say, well, as a business, this is, thanks, Jeremy. Sorry about that, Blair. Thanks, Jeremy. Like to speak to you soon. Did you ever sort of have a thought on that and say, well, this is what our expectation is from a quantitative point of view, and this is the output and the performance expectation that we have. But as a business, these are the values that we want our team to live by, and as such, be a team player, be a collaborator, those sorts of things. So that way you can go back to that and say, well, this is part of your position description. This is part of your KPIs. We do expect our team to be team players. This is something that we feel that you're not quite doing. So because she's hitting all of those other metrics and they're all the quantitative stuff, let's have a look at the qualitative and how well is she doing her work? How well is she contributing to the team? So it might be worth just having a bit of a rejig of that, and not just for that individual, but those values-based KPIs should be across the board for everybody. And one thing that you can do as a bit of a strategy there is, once you implement those, which is again something that we do internally, on a weekly team meeting, you may pick a particular values-based KPI and say, I would love for you to bring to the meeting how you've done this week. So an example of that is we have one that's called Learn from Failure. And we needed to yesterday in our team meeting demonstrate this week how we have learnt from the failures that we had during that week, and what we've done to now rectify that going forward. So maybe just have a bit of a think about that. And then the last point, sorry to overload you there, is to make sure that it's all documented, because that's critical thing number one. You can have those conversations, but if from a risk mitigation point of view, that conversation goes pear-shaped, if you don't have evidence to back up those issues that were occurring and that employee was to claim unfair dismissal, you could be in a bit of trouble. So you just want to make sure that you've got it all documented, it's all evidenced. But yeah, we obviously want them to get to where they need to be. So maybe worth just implementing some value-based KPIs that aren't quantitative, quality, and values.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you.
Some really good points. And of course, there'll be heaps more next week. It's great to have you on to answer these questions like in a different way. Like a lot of this stuff that I don't. I do it in a more direct, I guess. Not thinking about the behaviors and the performances and stuff like that. So it's awesome comments. So thank you for that. Does anybody want to jump off mute and have a chat about their staffing, and just let us know? Firstly, if you've got any questions, I'll leave that question out there first. No particular questions coming out. Annette, did you want to talk? Are you able to come off mute? Are you wanting to talk about your staffing at the moment? Because I know you're rocking it at the moment. Are you intending on putting a staff member on? If you are, I can see you are on, but you might not have your microphone ready.
Well, whilst we're waiting, Katrina, I just want to reference to Blair's point there as well, that as with our relationship with Pure Bookkeeping, everybody that is associated with Pure Bookkeeping does receive some free support from Happy HR. So Blair, if you did on in camera wanted to get some more advice around that conversation, feel free to either let Katrina know or contact us direct, and I'd be happy to get our team to maybe just go through some of the points with you to just give you a second opinion if you'd like. And that's all free, doesn't cost you anything.
That's fabulous. Thank you. That's good. Good. Karen, did you want to come off? Oh, you are off mute. Oh, we can't hear you though.
That bit, does that make it better?
Yeah, just turn it on.
I always forget that bit. So I'm looking at employing my first staff member, and it's scaring me quite considerably, but I'm sort of made the big mistake of leaving everything too long and should have done it a while ago, and now I'm drowning in just the day-to-day, and JobKeeper, etc. So I haven't even got the time to do the planning that I know I need to do. So it's sort of a bit of a catch-22. But anyway, I'm sure over Christmas I'll get time. But I don't have, I work from home, and I'm just wondering how I employ someone to start off with, because obviously I don't want to go out and, sign up to a rental place. Can you do it straight away virtually, or how do people start off?
Yeah, well, look, it's a bit of an interesting one, because I think COVID-19 has taught a lot of people that working from home is something that we can do now. Productivity hasn't dropped, and there's it's something that we're doing internally. And sure, you can certainly do that. You would want to make sure that you've got some things around in their employment agreement around what their location is going to be, their working times, all that sort of stuff. You'd want to have a working from home policy as well, that really discusses what the expectations are, what the reporting requirements are, and most importantly, would be an engagement strategy. So how are you going to engage with that person? What meetings are you going to have? Is it going to be a conversation at the start of the day and the end of the day just to check in to see how they're going, what tasks they've done, what tasks they haven't done? Is it going to be a monthly meeting for more, overall conversations, not the day-to-day operations? So certainly the answer to that question is you can. There is no reason why you couldn't hire somebody to work directly from home. There's just, again, some little bits and pieces that you want to get sorted right. And Katrina, you asked me this question just the other day around what stuff needs to go in there. So yeah, answer is yes, but from a contract point of view, the location of their employment is important to note down, and having a working from home policy. And are you looking for somebody that's in the same state as you or in a different location?
I guess to start off with, it would be handy to have somebody local, and only because I'm new to everything. Yep. And it would be good to be able to sit down face to face with someone to start off, like, you know, as a first hire, because I've still got to get a lot of my systems in place. And then once that's done, then I think I could hire someone like completely virtually, but the basics aren't quite there yet.
Yep, understand. The only reason I asked that question is because the last point that you really want to get set on is what state they're governed by. So what public holidays are they going to follow and all those sorts of things, because it does change from state to state, of course. So from a compliance point of view, that would just be the last thing you'd want to tick off if it was external. But there's no reason why you couldn't, if you really wanted to, go get a WeWork type of scenario where once a week you go get a room that's in a mutual location that you can go over stuff. There's so many different ways you can work it, but there's, again, going back to the original question, there's no reason why you can't. It just comes down to what sort of strain is that going to put on you from a training point of view, and what's that engagement strategy and contact strategy with them to make sure that they are being as productive as you would need them to be.
Okay.
And there's a lot of resources in Pure Bookkeeping because you're a licensee with Pure Bookkeeping. So there's a lot of resources there that do support you on onboarding and reviewing the right staff and finding the right staff member. So you would obviously, you know, advertise, put it out there of what you want. First of all, you'd like to know exactly the type of person that you want, and we can help you with that next week around the type of person that you want and the systems that you need to put in place and be prepared for to putting on that person. And then you've got the skills test. So definitely, and it does take some planning and a bit of time. So, you know, all of this preparing who you want, the systems you need to put in place, reviewing the skills test and the whole induction manual that's in the Pure Bookkeeping system, because it's really important to put that person through the skills testing to make sure that they are, because I had it myself. People would say, yes, I'm a pro at MYOB. So this is back in the desktop MYOB day. And I'd put them down in front of the computer and they didn't know how to find certain things. Oh, it used to be there and they must have changed it. And like, you highlight very quickly what they don't know, because they don't know what they don't know. So it's really important. So I really encourage you to put them through the skills test. It takes a little bit of time to organize it and get it set up, but it's well worth it, because it takes a whole lot more time, money, and energy to unemploy somebody to get them back out. And you don't want to be sitting there training them up to speed when you should have already identified whether they're up to speed or not. And whether you hire somebody remotely at the start, so they might not be able to come to your office, or you don't have the preparations for them sharing your office, utilize Zoom. One of our licensees have offshore staff and they have a Zoom meeting open all day. So they can see what their staff are doing, and they're using TOA staff. So they can see what their staff are doing and they can constantly have communication, so conversations all of the time with that staff member as well. So I'd highly recommend, I'd highly recommend putting a staff member on if you can identify that you need a staff member sooner than later. And we don't want to get into the situation where we're working 60 plus hours in a business. Put the staff member on sooner than that. But you might already be caught up in that situation, but that's pretty normal for us bookkeepers. We just get working until we're like, oh shit, this is not working for us. So so don't let the COVID situation, this what's happening at the moment without being able to meet properly and all of that, avoid you or just stop you from moving ahead and hiring. And also, especially, I guess first employees are going to be like a level 2 type of bookkeeper, somebody that can get it up to bank rec and maybe trial balance. So they're the type of staff that you'll be looking for. And they might be easier to find within your 20K radius. Then I'm finding a lot of bookkeepers that are wanting that experienced BAS agent. They're not finding them in the 20K radius. So people don't want to travel more than 20Ks or a half an hour. And you don't want them to, because they're going to burn out. They're not going to stay. If they say, oh, I don't mind, driving 50 minutes a day backwards and forwards, it's like, just doesn't work. So you might be having to go remote. And that's what I'm finding with more and more bookkeepers. They've got 1 or 2 staff. They're now ready for their BAS agent. They can't find them locally. So we have to go to this remote bookkeeping. And that's exactly, Steve, when I spoke to you last week about one of our licensees having to go remote. She's, I think she's an hour and a half away from in Adelaide, and now Adelaide can't go anywhere for a little while, hopefully. That, she is going to set that person up remotely. She's been looking for years for somebody to come into the office, but it's just not working. So she just wants to lock down that remote policy that you'd mentioned that, we do need.
And you cast your net wide and far. You're not restrained, and we say the same thing internally. We're a digital company, so why would we limit ourselves to 20 kilometres around Docklands in Melbourne? Let's cast it. If we've got a person in HR or sales or partnerships or whatever it is that we're looking for at the time, if there's somebody phenomenal in Perth, why wouldn't we hire them? It doesn't make any sense not to, because the quality of work is going to be so much better. And it was really interesting that I was planning to go on my honeymoon in March before COVID broke out. And I said to my boss, I'm going to take my laptop with me to Bali, because if I get stuck over there, I still want to be able to work. And that's the nature of the world at the moment. And what everybody's learning is that digitally things can still get done. Unless they've got a disk software upload type of system, which I don't think many people do anymore. But it casts your net far and wide. You can find the people that you're looking for. It makes it a lot easier. But is there any other concerns that you do have, Karen, around hiring your first employee, regardless whether it's remote or otherwise, that you're happy to divulge in the conversation today?
I guess it's just a matter of sitting down and really, like Katrina said, planning it all out as to what tasks and that you can get someone to do. I don't envisage I'm going to be able to get somebody that's hugely experienced. So I imagine there'll be a fair bit of training, and they'll be doing sort of your basic, more like data entry up to bank rec kind of stuff. So it's just the time management of, the jobs that you give them and how much you will need them, how many hours that you sort of are committing to, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess that goes back to the original point. When you're doing those tasks, write down how long it's taking you. And obviously they're not going to be at the same standard and the same level as you, so obviously factor that into your calculations. But if you can do it as you're going, those tasks that you think that person is going to be doing, and put down the time that you think that you're going, or that they're going to need to be able to complete those. We call it a time in motion study. So really it's about studying the time that it's going to take them to complete the tasks on a week-to-week basis. And if you're doing those tasks at the moment and you're able to jot down how long it's taking you, you can reflect on that at the end of the week and say, okay, it took me 25 hours to do all of these tasks. I would assume that it's going to take somebody that's not as experienced 35 hours. And that sort of gives you your answer as to what you would expect from an hours per week perspective. Could be less, could be more, and that'll help you to identify what that looks like. And then you say, okay, well, it's 40 hours. Do I hire one person full-time? Do I hire 2 people on a part-time basis that do 20 hours each? Do I hire multiple casuals? Do I hire somebody virtually? And that sort of allows you to sort of give you your options and break down what the best strategy is for you, both from a time perspective, but also a financial perspective.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, really good points. And it is around the planning of it, and just jotting down what they can do. And it is often, bookkeepers do forget that our staff that we do hire will not will take longer than we do. And it's an expectation that bookkeepers put staff on, and they're just, you know, not as good, not as fast, not as accurate, not as, you know, they don't know the client, they don't know this, they don't know that. So then they don't hire for that reason, because they don't know the quality of the work that is coming out of the staff, and that they're taking longer. And that could also be due to the systems that you have in place. So if you don't have the system to allow them real clear expectations, so, you know, your full checklists of exactly what they need to do, and also, you know, have some training mechanism, like, you know, doing Loom videos and the ability to show them how to do certain transactions. So all of those things will help the expectations and the success of the staff member as well. So, and of course, you know, a lot of that stuff is in the Pure Bookkeeping system already for you, that, you know, you will be able to guarantee the work is being done to your standards because you have documented them in our client manuals and our checklists and our templates. So for you to put on your first hire, you want to think about which client you are going to pass over to this new hire first, and document the heck out of that, the client manual, do training videos. So it just helps that transition along really, really fast, rather than putting them on and go, oh God, I've got no information, I haven't implemented the Pure Bookkeeping system, you know, for everybody. But do it for those clients you're about to hand over as a starting point, if you haven't already done the, you know, the system in place. Awesome. Terry, did you want to come off mute, because you spoke about that you are also putting a staff member on for the first time?
Hi, yeah, no, my issue is purely financial. It's the whole being on my own, working at home, and then I have to drop the income, increase my hours, which is already 6 days a week at the moment, and where the hell do I go from there? It's just like, it just boggles my mind. I just, you know, it freaks me out, to be honest.
Where to start? Yeah,
because it's like, you know, like you finally built up, like, but you're only doing see, I'm doing an hourly rate too, which is another thing which I think I should be doing set rate, so that I can actually make the money out of it. And then if I do an hourly rate and I'm charging an hourly rate and they're taking twice the time, I'm losing money, as well as losing money on the training time and all that sort of stuff. That's where I get really bogged down in all the whole ifs, whys and buts.
Yeah, and it is overwhelming, and it is scary for the first time, but I can guarantee that it is worth it. And if you've got the systems in place to guarantee, you know, the workload, and that you get everything out of your head so somebody can pick it up quite easily, if we can make the systems as easy as possible for that person to come on, I can guarantee all the rest of it will work.
So you don't recommend trying to do the fixed price first?
You don't need to do the fixed price first.
Okay.
You can still do it on an hourly basis. But I totally recommend getting over to the fixed price and the value pricing. Yeah. But if you need somebody right now to help with your workload, because 6 days a week is not sustainable for, you know, a length of time.
No, it's not. No.
So recommend that you look at putting somebody on. So finding out exactly of those 6 days, what clients, what workload you can hand over to a staff member.
Okay. Yeah.
Keep your margins to 50%, as close to 50% as possible. So if you're charging 80, then certainly don't go above 40. And if you're getting a level 2 bookkeeper, you'd go around 25 as a permanent, 30 as a contractor type of figure, without knowing, you know, exactly what you're wanting. Put somebody on, get them to help you create the system. So if you don't already have the systems in place, haven't implemented stuff, get them to also help you create them. You know,
that's what I was thinking. It might be the best option to start with. Yeah, like an admin person rather than a bookkeeper to start with, that's going to, like, or a bit of both. Do you know what I mean? Like somebody who's done accounting, like accounts work, but is admin as well. So they take over most of that side to start with.
Yes, so you can put on, the bookkeeper that might have some admin skills, or a bookkeeper will still do some admin in terms of client manuals, checklists, upload, if you're uploading, Carbon or Asana, or if you're creating, a workflow management software, they can assist you in all of that. There's so much in this content to talk about in this particular, conversation. But don't delay. Look for putting somebody on. Because the money will come back. You do feel as if you're going to lose a bit because you're handing some over to somebody else, but it's short term.
I think you're right with that whole actually getting them to do the manuals as well. I think that was my sticking point as well, because I'm doing so much on the books. I'm not doing enough in the business. And
it's a bit of a, you'll be chasing for a while to get the client manual and training videos and getting them trained up to do the work. So, for a mentoring client, I would assess what clients you have. Are there clients that aren't profitable, aren't worth keeping, don't value you, they're on your low rate, all of those type of things, that you might get rid of a few services or start saying no to things because they're not your ideal. So it's about building the business for the longer term. And if you are planning on growing, continue to, accept clients and putting them on, not being just a sole entrepreneur, then you need staff, sooner than later if you're already capped out. And then you need to, keep supporting that staff so that you're building a stronger business. You'll be putting on another staff straight away.
Because this is my issue, that I'm putting out spot fires rather than doing that in-depth work that I was doing with my clients when I had the time. And I feel like I'm letting them down as well as just working these huge, stupid hours.
And I think talking about our business benchmarks next week will also give you an idea of the business that you want to build.
Okay.
Because putting staff members on doesn't necessarily mean that's what you want. Just building, bigger business, bigger, more staff, more clients, more, bigger doesn't necessarily mean that's what you want. So, looking at our business culture and our vision and stuff that we do next week, will identify whether it's the right way to go as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Not just jumping into it.
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Good. Now, there's been a few comments. We put the registration post in there for if you haven't already registered for the webinar for next week. And there's a lot of giveaways as well. There's business culture documents, some infographics, just some Word documents that will be offered as a download if you register for the webinar next week. So look out for that. Blair said, get off hourly. I'm learning this now. Set labour percentage targets for packages. So it's a whole new learning stuff, but I guess you look at what's the biggest bang for your buck right now. What's going to make the biggest effect on your business right now? And that would be, I'd imagine, putting a staff member on to get you away from doing 6 days so you can work on your own business. If you're on $60 an hour, I'd be putting it up by 10 or 15. So you want to be around the $75 an hour if you're charging by the hour, plus additional for lodging your BAS, just as a general guide. So you're a pure bookkeeper. You're a pure bookkeeper, aren't you, Terry, as well? So you've learnt the necessity of charging a higher rate, putting a fee on your lodgements, setting all of this stuff up. It's just the mindset of getting over, holy crap, do I have to be a leader now? Do I have to, be a business owner and, put my big girl pants on to actually, lead other staff? So that's the scary bit. But yeah, that's what you are supported, inside of our community of doing that. So that's awesome. Good. Was there any last questions before we finish up? You want any last comments, any questions of Steve while he's here? Nope. Nobody want to come off mute? All good. There's a few people hiding, no cameras, but that's all good. Helen, you've been very quiet. you working in an office at the moment? You can't
Yeah,
talk?
I've actually been on the phone with accountants, so that's why I had to stay on mute. And I just thought I'm going to what he said. He even said, "Oh, I can hear the thing in the background," so I muted you guys, and I said, "That's okay. I can watch the recording." Apologies, everyone. It's just some things can't wait.
No, that's perfectly okay. Did you have any glaring questions you would like to ask Steve?
Not until I watch the replay, if that's okay, Steve.
Yeah.
So,
Not a problem.
I'm actually in the process of employing, so I'm in desperate need of getting some extra help.
Not a problem.
Yeah, so good to hear, Katrina. We're above our, well, we don't charge hourly, but I think we're in a good position there. Yeah, so that's all good, but yeah, I'm okay for now until I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's all good.
I'd rather watch the replay, so all good.
Yeah, yep, that's fine. And bring any questions next week anyway. We'll have some Q&A session next week as well. And obviously Steve is from Happy HR, which maybe Steve, do you want to just as a quick, as we just closing up, if there's any other questions come through, exactly what Happy HR provides? Because I should have realized, I do know that that you do some recruiting as well, but the main, I guess your core would be around supporting businesses onboarding staff.
Yeah. 100%, yeah. So basically, I'll explain it in 3 points. So the first part is around compliance and compliance documentation. So we provide contracts, policies, and also build position descriptions. And we're working with Katrina at the moment to build some pure bookkeeping based position descriptions that will be on offer for anybody that does join us. But so there's that documentation there. We update it whenever there's any legislative policies. And then the next part is the software itself. So we are to HR what Xero and MyOb and QuickBooks is to accounting and payroll. So all of the HR processes are built inside of the software, and it does integrate with all of your payroll systems. So a bit of an administrative burden is removed there. And that's things onboarding, offboarding. There's a recruitment module. So internal recruitment, grievances, anything you can think of from a HR point of view. And then the last part is whenever you get sort of into these tricky binds that you need some answers around, you're able to give us a call or shoot us through an email, and we do provide that advice as well. So sort of an end-to-end virtual sort of consultancy plus the software for you to manage it internally.
Yeah. So I think that's awesome. And I think it's really necessary for bookkeepers to have somebody to be able to call or email a question on behalf of a client and get an answer. So it's not just for your own business. It is for your clients as well. So there's limited amount of access to be able to ask questions, which I think is really important that we have that support as well. And of course, Pure Bookkeeping gets a discount for the subscription model as well. And I love the first where Pure Bookkeeping is actually going to be putting all of our staff through, our 12 staff through the system, or however many staff we've got, contractors and staff, and and starting the performance reviews in a more structured way. So that's what I'm looking forward to is getting those through in there as well. So that's going to be important for us to manage and monitor and maintain our staff. So
too good.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we're at the top of the hour. No other questions. Nobody else is off mute, I don't think. Let me just check if anybody else is off mute. Nope, just us. That's all good. So we'll finish up. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. Don't forget to register for the series that we're starting next week. So next week is around next hire. And the following week, December the 1st, I think it is. I think it's around like position descriptions and the practical stuff as well. That we're
both are all about, I guess, the planning stage and the different stages associated with that. Yep.
Yeah, and then next year, we'll talk more about the maintenance and the more detailed stuff. Yep. Yeah, awesome. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you so much, Steve, for jumping on today and answering questions. I think it was very, really informative. Got a lot of value out of it. So awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic day.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. Bye
See
all.
you later. Bye bye.